So my name is Michel Akimovic. I come from the Rural Development Institute at Brandon University, and today I'm presenting on the different research we are carrying out at the Rural Development Institute, which are mostly at the moment about rural broadband, and we look at the utilization of rural broadband and its impact on rural communities. Also about research investigating rural employers' motivation to hire newcomers in order to inform future policy making to have a better immigration policy. Also presenting some progresses on a research looking at the soybean supply chain in Manitoba, because soybean production is increasing quickly, and but soybean is shipped to China, and hog farmers in Manitoba at the same time import soy meal from the US. So why not processing soybean to produce soy meal that will be used by Manitoba hog farmers? And at the same time, I would like to quickly discuss the benefits of maintaining good communication during the research process, because in a few research I realized that such a genuine communication process during the research can really generate spin-off effects to the research and increase impacts. Not only the results of the research per se, but all the surrounding these unexpected and surrounding effects which are very beneficial for communities. So I would like to share my experience, but also get some feedback from any person who's had experienced good communication processes. So in this conference, I'm really looking forward broadening my scope of research, because I was primarily engaged in research on food system and farm adaptation in near urban areas. But now that I'm doing more research on rural areas, I would like to understand what are the burning issues for rural communities in order to generate future research questions that will hopefully shed some light on the problems that rural communities need to face. And at the same time, because I'm transitioning into this research, I just would like to connect with rural practitioners, rural researchers, in order to be able to carry out better research in the future.
Hi, I'm Mary Ferguson, and I'm here talking about the role of rural and remote municipalities in supporting social enterprise development. So I started this journey probably 10 years ago. I was working across Canada, working with social businesses, but for the most part in urban settings. And because I live in a rural area, I really wanted to bring some of these ideas to rural communities. So I started working with a collaborative of organizations, and we started the Rural Social Enterprise Collaborative, where we worked throughout Ontario and were mapping social enterprises. And there's a lot of activity in this field, but people don't see themselves as part of it. So about 6 years ago, I thought, well, there's not a lot written about this, so I went back to school. I didn't need another degree, but it was an interesting enough area. So I started looking at all the research that was out there in terms of rural social enterprise, and eventually decided to focus on municipalities, because they're very close to where people are living, and I wanted to know what municipalities were doing to support social enterprise development. So through that process, I ended up identifying a very complex process. I talked to a lot of people throughout rural Ontario, rural and remote regions. We identified 8 case studies that I spent time researching, so traveling around Ontario, and came up with some conclusions. So of the 8, 5 of those organizations were acting as intermediaries. They were supporting social enterprises in sometimes little ways, like providing insurance, letting people get access to space, that kind of stuff. And then 3 of them were municipalities where they were involved in actually running social enterprises. So then I started examining this whole thing and thinking, okay, rural municipalities are running social enterprises and they're being intermediaries. So what are the effective practices that I can document that will help rural and remote municipalities have a better pathway to understanding of the pathway that they need to be able to support social enterprise development. So then came up with practices and a whole system for trying to create an enabling and aligned environment in the province of Ontario. So just some examples of what municipalities are doing as intermediaries is providing low-cost space to groups that are doing interesting things, covering them by insurance, providing grants as they're doing early stage work, adding their name as a sponsor to applications. So there were lots of things that they were doing with nonprofits to support their social enterprise ideas. And then what they were trying to do with their own social enterprises is, so the things that were coming out was looking at public infrastructure as schools are sold, as jails are sold, try to keep those within the municipality because they provide opportunities for nonprofits to do their ideas. And things like some municipalities are using very creative corporate structures to operate social enterprises that generate revenue back to the municipality. So I really was looking at the definition of social enterprise and effective practices and came up with a rather long story which has a few versions that might be of interest to people.
So my name's Rebecca Hasdell. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto and also at Dalhousie University. And I ask questions about what grocery stores can tell us about promoting more health-enabling neighborhoods and communities in smaller cities and rural areas. So my research looks at kind of 3 main areas. The first is to ask how health promoting are those settings in the first place. So what is people's geographic accessibility to healthy or less healthy retail? And then what's it actually like when they go in stores? So what's the consumer environment of the store? Second, I ask what kind of information people need about stores in order to be able to make them more health promoting. So how can we support kind of all the different people who are involved in potentially being part of an intervention in the store to be able to participate in that process? I think we have a lot of people in the room who are involved with municipalities, potentially with public health units, with granting agencies, or with like credit unions who might be able to support this kind of work. And so I'm kind of interested in sharing a little bit about what we found in northern BC about the retail environments in that area and figuring out sort of where that lands with what people's experiences are in other parts of the country, in Ontario and in smaller town Ontario. And yeah, what questions people have about their local retail environments and what would they like to see changed and what information would they need to do that? And how could we as researchers kind of support people in these different contexts to be able to do retail environment research?
I'm Joel Armstrong. I work with a company called Signum Insights. We're a research consulting company, and we are working for the SRPC right now, the Social Research and Planning Council, through the Perth Huron United Way. And they have hired us to do some research for them, trying to look at what it means to live on less than a living wage. And so in 2015, the SRPC generated the Living Wage Report, which was a project aimed at calculating how much money people needed to survive comfortably but without any extras or frills in the Perth and Huron area. And so our research is designed to flesh that out. We were brought in to help flesh out exactly what it looks like for people to live on less than a living wage. And so How Much Is Enough project is a qualitative research project where we've gone out and spoken to a number of focus groups to try and understand what these people's lives are like. And so what we found the majority of the time, what comes up over and over and over again is that the issues are housing, food, and transportation. So there's not very much affordable housing, and what there is not very nice place to raise a family. There's a lot of problems with issues like black mold or broken down homes. It's hard to get landlords to kind of be responsive. Food, how I would summarize what we found about food is that generally people can get enough calories, but it's hard for them to find enough nutrients. Fruit and vegetables are a problem. Transportation is very difficult in rural areas because everything's really far apart. And so Stratford has some public transportation, but outside of that, it can be hard for people to get around. So we tried to also ask people about how they manage, how they get by, how they deal with their lives on a kind of day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And largely they help each other out. We found a lot of people referred to their friends and family as a part of how they were able to get by. They rely heavily on social services. OW and ODSP came up over and over again as the central programs that they were dependent on, but of course any social services are stretched largely to their limits because so many people are needing and using them. Subsidized and low-income housing is essential. The difference between $200 a month in rent and $800 a month in rent can be the difference between being able to afford food and bills for your family for the month or not. And then food banks are essential. Like I said, people get enough calories, and that's because there are lots of food banks around. And so this has a tremendous impact on people at all levels of the individual families and communities in these areas. So at the individual level, physical and mental health problems are rampant. There's diabetes and heart disease. All the problems associated with nutrition are very, very common, as well as anxiety and depression, mental health problems because of the stress of never knowing that you're just one unexpected expense away from not being able to afford what you need for your family. So that makes it difficult on families too. They have to make choices like, am I going to feed my kids, or am I going to pay a bill? Am I going to pay a bill, or am I going to pay car insurance? It has an effect on communities because poverty is isolating, and it just forces people to stay at home because it's just expensive to do anything. Leaving the house costs money, getting somewhere costs money. So this is a preliminary research project. We have preliminary results that we found. The goal is for us to generate a report for the SRPC that they will be distributing in the spring of 2019. It was a wonderful opportunity that we got to be involved in this conference. It's really encouraging to see just how many people there are, how many dedicated and hardworking people there are who care about these issues and who are concerned about it. And so I am just happy to be here at the SRPC, to represent the SRPC or help them sort of let people know about all the good work that they do. And it's been a pleasure talking to people and understanding more broadly the sort of deeper and systemic both problems, but also the work and research that's being done on those issues to inform some of the things we've learned about the people we've been talking to. So it's been a wonderful experience being at the Art2Art conference.
Okay. So my name is Pam Dusling. I'm a part-time PhD student in rural studies at the University of Guelph, and I'm working with Dr. Wayne Caldwell. But I'm also the Director of Planning in Norfolk County. So my research opportunity really melds both my academic opportunity and my career together. So in Norfolk County, we're a good example of agricultural diversification. We have a lot of new uses on our farms in Norfolk County, and I believe that comes from being a community that was primarily a tobacco industry, and our farmers have had to diversify out of the need. So they're not always growing just different kinds of crops on our prime agricultural soils. They're also introducing new uses on the farms. And my research is about balancing the entrepreneurial opportunities for farmers while also preserving our prime agricultural lands. So in Norfolk County, as a case example, we are all prime agricultural lands, which means we are class 1 to 3 soils. And in 2016, OMAFRA came out with some guidelines. They are guidelines on how to utilize agricultural diversification to a certain size and scale. The PPS tells us that we need to protect our prime agricultural lands, and the OMAFRA guidelines offer opportunities for entrepreneurs on those prime agricultural lands. So my hope is to utilize those guidelines, to review them, see how farmers across Ontario, not only in Norfolk County but Ontario, are working with those guidelines on prime agricultural lands. And then my hope is in 2024 to create a policy regime that's consistent across Ontario. So that's my agricultural diversification research. The conversations that are happening today, as I'm talking to people from Huron County and around the area about what's happening here, provides great insight and examples of how the guidelines are working elsewhere. And those conversations are really important to my research as a starting point to see what's happening elsewhere.